Good morning, COS. My name is Austin Shelton. I'm from Guam, and I'm a student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. 15 minutes from now, we will put into your hand a framework that will allow Pacific Islands the ability to make actual change, to amplify existing resources, and to develop a strong regional network. It will break through political, social, and economic barriers preventing change. This framework will be specific, yet adaptable, top-down, yet bottom-up, low cost, yet high impact. And the best part is, you will implement this framework today by taking one simple action. We call this framework Pacific Islanders Navigating Coral Reef Revival. We all know that corals are getting pounded by a whole bunch of different stressors from all different sides. There's climate change, sedimentation, recreational overuse, dynamite blast fishing, and overfishing. Yet, with all these stressors, coral reefs are not dead. Yes, they're sick. Yes, they're struggling. Some of them are hanging on by a thread, but coral reefs are not dead. When we remove these stressors, coral reefs will be revived. Pacific Islanders Navigating Coral Reef Revival. Pacific Islanders know what's wrong with their resources. They know what the problems are. They've been interacting with these resources for thousands of years. In fact, many of these islands already developed very descriptive frameworks of what they need to do, what problems they need to address to make the coral reefs healthier. The problem is that these islands typically have very limited resources, which allows them only to address a few problems at a time, leaving many important goals on the back burner. COS, this is where you come in. No, not as the big California NGO telling Pacific Islanders, this is what you need to do to save your coral reefs. No, not that. COS, you will be the wind in the sail, moving already expert navigators across the path to coral reef revival. And now my friend Nate is going to tell you about this framework.
Thank you, Austin. My name is Nate Maynard. I'm from the Monterey Institute of International Studies, and I'd like to further explain how our regional network will develop over time and create itself. First, we begin with an interdisciplinary revival team. They'll take a three-tiered approach to address top-down regulatory reform, blowing away political barriers, as well as tackle local initiatives improving immediate coral health. In addition to this, they will simultaneously work on building capacity within the island communities through outreach and education. These three will produce synergy to reduce local stressors on the coral reef, creating positive feedback loops leading to community local revival and spreading the network to other nearby islands. This will lead to a regional coral reef revival that is owned by the islands themselves and done to the best of their abilities in the ways they know how, with COS's support. This is a simplified theory of change that we're going to walk through over the course of this presentation. First, we're going to describe the team and how they'll work together. Then we're going to deal with the choices that they make and which project they have ownership over. Then we're going to move on to the change, how they actually accomplish that project. Moving on to spread, which is the mechanism that will grow the regional network throughout the Pacific Islands, strengthening it further, which will lead to regional revival. And now, Lida.
Hi, I'm Lida Tanua, and I'm at Stanford, and I'll give you a little more detail on how this team will be formed to best reconcile top-down and bottom-up approaches towards transformative coral reef solutions locally. The first step of the process is COS reaching out strategically to a legislator on a Pacific Island nation. And this legislator will already be identified as an environmental leader, an environmental champion who is likely to have the tenacity to break down political barriers to positive change. Next, COS and the legislator will work together to select the other members of the team. One of the key aspects of this team is that it will be comprised at least 50% by locals. The team will have a natural scientist, and this will be somebody who will be responsible for designing a monitoring framework and protocol which will be implemented during the duration of the project that the team will have selected to carry out in a 2-year period. The natural scientist will be responsible for the ecological monitoring of coral reef state. There will be a social scientist. The social scientist will be responsible for surveying the local community and evaluating the social benefits of the project. In addition, there will be a local business expert who will keep a pulse on how local businesses on site will be able to help or hinder the local coral reef project which has been chosen to be implemented. The very important job of this local business expert will also be to lay out a sustainable finance plan for the 2-year timeline of the project specifically and beyond. Last but not least, we have a cultural liaison, and this is also somebody who is local. He's well respected and well trusted in the community, and he will act as a community outreach coordinator. He'll carry out also some educational outreach, and he will keep the whole team together in terms of really paying attention, keeping the team on track with respect to cultural sensitivities of the coral reef project that is being implemented. The key here is that the interdisciplinary of this team, they will strengthen each other and will be more than the sum of the parts, as they will together decide on the most relevant, feasible, tractable local coral reef project, depending on their island priorities and stressors, and they will intervene and have an implementation plan with very clear and achievable goals. The way that this model builds capacity locally is not only the interaction of these people together, but also drawing on their local networks and leveraging these resources locally on site together with the global partnership of COS, the COS partners globally. For example, the social scientist on site may need to call up Jack and say, well, how do I do this survey in this particular environment because I have such and such and such happening? Or the natural scientist might find a really super heat-resistant coral and need to call up Steve and say, well, I'll send you some of these corals. And so really part of a really important aspect of fostering capacity that is not just during the duration of the 2 years here where this feasible small-scale project will be achieved on site, but beyond, this capacity is also built upon this network of pre-existing COS partnerships that are already out there. And now I'll turn it over to Susie, who will go more into detail of how project choice will occur.
Thanks, Lena. I'm Susie Honig. I'm from UC Santa Cruz. So scientists all over the world have already agreed on what these sort of 4 local stressors to the revival of reefs are: sedimentation, pollution, habitat destruction, and overfishing. And Pacific Islanders are aware of these problems as well. These are just some of the many documents they've made outlining each of these exact problems. Unfortunately, it's really hard to tackle all of these at once. Sometimes it doesn't matter even if you know exactly where you want to go, if you can't get there without the wind. The strength of our approach is that we're allowing these navigators to choose their own relevant and feasible problem within a 2-year framework, and all COS is providing is the wind. We're proposing a 3-tiered approach that starts from the top down with some sort of regulatory reform. This could be the creation of a new bill by the legislator, or perhaps the breakdown of existing political barriers that are stopping change. At the same time, we want the team to perform intervention on site, on the ground. So for example, this could be planting trees and restoring cliff banks to prevent erosion and help decrease sedimentation in coral reefs. Finally, we'd like to have bottom-up capacity, which will basically add momentum and strengthen and change the knowledge, attitude, and behavior at a community level. Revival on one island would be outstanding, but revival across the region would be revolutionary. So how does this spread to the next island? So I'd like to hand it back over to Nate to explain that.
The answer is through a lessons learned series of best case studies. COS can act as a broker of knowledge to publish the best case studies that the islanders experience, as well as costs of particular projects and the benefits. This allows bright spots to be shared between the islands and most effective means that they've found. This is just an example of what a potential mock-up could look like. This is also a sample of how it may spread from island to island. Again, this isn't a top-down regional network like the Coral Triangle Initiative or another one you may have heard of. This network creates itself and can grow stronger through time. For example, beginning in Chuuk in the Federated States of Micronesia, they'll then go over to the Marshall Islands where they will share their best practices with the new island. As the new island finishes their project, they will move on to the next one, potentially in the Solomons, and share their information with them. This isn't just a regional network, this is an environmental movement accelerator. These will create networks between the islands of shared knowledge and stronger bonds. This will also allow leveraging for funding, for future funding, as well as grant applications, as the network creates itself and is not superimposed by an outside entity. As we just explained, this is our theory of change, moving from the formation of the team to the choice, to the change, to the spread, leading to overall regional revival.
Pacific Islanders navigating coral reef revival. In the past few minutes, you've heard how this framework is specific, yet adaptable to a really diverse set of islands. We start from a top-down approach with regulation reform and come bottom up with community members actually making a change. And you've seen how it's a low cost, yet the impact is huge. Now, in just a few moments, we're going to take your questions. But before that, a few minutes ago I said that we are going to put this framework in your hand within 15 minutes. Meg, if you wouldn't mind, could you hold out your hand for me? Here in this bracelet, we have our presentation and the details of this framework. And all you have to do is when you get back to your office today, just plug that in and you can get going. But wait, there's more. We also told you that you can start this framework today. You can implement it with one simple action. Here, we drafted an email for you. Now, all you have to do is think about that favorite Pacific Island legislator, somebody that you get along with, somebody you know that has the environmental interests in his heart. All you have to do is insert his or her name at the top line and press the send button. Susie, if you wouldn't mind, could you read the last paragraph of this very detailed framework email?
Sure. We aren't here to tell you what to do or how to do it. You know what is best for your coral and your community. COS is here to provide you with the team, the time, and the finances to accomplish a goal that is currently beyond your reach. All we ask is that you share your lessons with the next island to join the program. Signed, Meg Caldwell and Larry Crowder, Center for Ocean Solutions.
Thank you, Susie. And Lita, would you mind opening that iPad and pressing that button? Okay, Meg, that's in your inbox now. And with that, we'd like to take any questions